You can act like I'm not when you know I'm that. You can act like I'm not. It's probably gonna be quiet because most likely I need a slight bit of quiet while I do some work online. Why is this rose incense? Smells so beautiful. Smells so beautiful. Don't you agree? Beautiful out of my face, baby. You can act like I'm not when you know I am the. So I might be live for a little while. We'll see. Um, I got several things to do online. I might go out a little later on. It's 3:52. Yeah, you can't say it. 3:52. I need a bigger table. I got so much going on. That's fucking tape. No one's here. Just me. Little me. You can act like I'm not. I want to turn on some music, but y'all really need this time to read. So I'm about to do a bunch of reading. I may or may not read out loud. Just depends. It just depends. A lot of what I'm going to be reading just I don't know if it's going to be interesting. But that's exactly what I'm going to be over here doing reading. I have a lot to read and to take some notes on. Excuse me. What's the best way to put this on? You can act like I'm not. That's a mirror in the background. honestly. Seriously. Seriously, honestly. Nothing. Biographical sketch. Ooh, I'm trying to break this tripod. Let's see. I like the other side better. I think my other side is better. But you know, it's what it is. Okay. Excuse me. He became academically established during the 1960s, holding a series of positions at French universities before his election in 1969 to the ultra prestigious Collège de France, where he was professor of the history of systems of thought until his death. Well, that was inevitable. What now? I need to quit focusing on this goddamn camera, y'all, and just let it be. Look at that. Train. Yeah. You see the vision. Tra la 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 la. Is this the same guy? Am I on the right model? I don't think I'm in the right model. I think I'm supposed to be in model 4. Oh my word. Yeah, that was a completely wrong model. Irving Goffman. Okay. Philcott versus Goffman. Okay. I don't think it's nothing. I'm trying to get comfortable in this chair. One zero two, and we going to dive into our zen. One zero two, and I said it wrong. One zero to the right. I think she says right first, and then she says left. And then get on my nerves when artists be switching up the left and the rights and shit. One zero to the right. We going to the time, but this year's on the night. This ain't Texas. I don't know if I should be singing this song. Oh well. Going down, 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 down. So park your legs in, put your feet up, and stick around, round, 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 round. And I will go dance with you. You hold now. Come on, baby. Let's take it to the show now. Okay, I'm not gonna, because that song too catchy. Okay, what is this? It's only 10 pages. We can do the couple minutes. The presentation of self in everyday life. Irving Goffman. Is that our next theorist? Is Goffman? Yeah. Introduction. When an individual enters the presence of others, they commonly seek to acquire information about him or to bring into play information about him already possessed. They will be interested in his general socioeconomic status, his conception of self, his attitude towards them, his competence, his trustworthiness, etc. Although some of this information seems to be sought almost as an end in itself, there are usually quite practical reasons for acquiring it. Information about the individual helps to define the situation, enabling others to know in advance what he will expect of them and what they may expect of him. Informed in these ways, the others will know how best to act in order to call for a desired response from him. which is interesting because the whole time I was thinking about this. So this is can't be the process of just like observing from a distance. This is like a process of just like meeting someone for the first time, like a stranger. Yeah, because I think it's interesting how people frame their perceptions of others from a distance by their own mind frame, by their own structure, their own makeup. And it just blows my mind. It's very interesting. So he says when an individual, this is well, he's no longer here. He's like a theorist, a sociologist. Um, the title of his PDF is The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life by Irvin Goffman, the sociologist. When an individual enters the presence of others, they commonly seek to acquire information about him or to bring into play information about him already possessed. They will be interested in his general socioeconomic status, his conception of self, his attitudes towards them, his competence, his trustworthiness, etc. Although some of this information seems to be sought almost as an end in itself, there are usually quite practical reasons for acquiring it. Information about the individual helps to define the situation, enabling others to know in advance what he will expect of them and what they may expect of him. Informed in these ways, the others will know how best to act in order to call for a desired response from him. So, what do we bring in to play when we are like secretly observing? Oh, the one thing that I don't like is I can't switch back and forth. They will be interested in his general socioeconomic status. Ooh, and that's funny how they have that as the first thing that a person will be interested in. You know what I mean? It says it's general socioeconomic status. That's why people ask, well, what do you do for work? I don't know if I can click off of here and this live still stays on. Nope. Uh, yeah, I didn't do that. Excuse me. Allergies, different aromas. They would be interested in his general psyche. Don't mind that stuff over there in the counter. It is what it is. I don't. I'm trying to organize this table and it keeps going back to what it needs to do. His conception of self. helps to define the situation. Wow, that's interesting. Just by general information, whatever information you give to a person, someone else know how to act, react, and to define on you based on your socioeconomic status, your conception of yourself, and your attitude towards the other individual, basically. For those present, many sources of information becomes accessible and many carriers or sign vehicles become available for conveying this information. If unacquainted with the individual, observers can glean clues from his conduct and appearance, which allows them to apply their previous experience with individuals roughly similar to one before them. That was the first thing I was thinking about. Because, being a black woman, you know what I'm saying? You already got their boxes. What you are just based on that, how you wear your hair and braids, or if you got a natural, or if you wear it straight and all that jazz and shit, motherfuckers got. The people are so slow. It's so easy to trick and psych a motherfucking person. I'm telling you, it's so easy. So easy. All I gotta do is put on a motherfucking costume. And you will think I'm a clown. But a regular motherfucker that I see every goddamn day who don't do shit with their fucking life, they wake up every day and do nothing, are the fucking true clowns out here. But I gotta fucking dress up in a costume to be a fucking clown, to be recognized as a clown. For those present, many sources of information become accessible and many carriers or sign vehicles become available for conveying this information. If unacquainted with the individuals, observers can glean clues from his conduct and appearance, which allows them to apply their previous experience with individuals roughly similar to ones before them, or more important, to apply untested stereotypes to him. They can also assume from past experience that only individuals of a particular kind are likely to be found in a given social setting. So they place a person just by their appearance, by what social settings. Yo, that's why I've been telling myself for a very fucking long time. Like, no matter where I go in this fucking city, it just seems like it is just so out of place. This, it is just so out of place. So fucking weird. Portland, Oregon. You would think the shit is a ghetto. I think the whole city is a ghetto, a whole gigantic fucking ghetto. So, based on their past experience, that only individuals of a particular kind are likely to be found in any given social settings. They can rely on what the individual says about him or on documentary evidence he provides as to who and what he is. So, you can rely on what a person tells you and evidence, maybe from your own experience, to put them in the box of who you think this person is, basically. So I can just lie to you and tell you anything. That's what people do for the most part. Not me, other people. Preachers came up first, pastors. I've never understood why people have to fucking lie in general and so easily for a motherfucking person to fucking lie. I never understood it. Never understood it. But see, maybe I need to learn to start motherfucking lying. Yeah, right. I don't even know if I can, nigga. Either you gonna get the information or you don't. Either I'm gonna tell you, you gonna know what kind of. Never mind. Let me just continue. Anyhow, so basically, we can all just lie, and people can, based on their past experiences and how you dress, how they observe you, they built their perceptions on your appearances. Anyway, so I'm reading Goffman, who's this sociologist. So I'm reading his PDF called The Presentation of Self. Trying to take some notes, and I'm just reading it because it's a really easy read for one. So, if they know or know of the individual by virtue of experience prior to the interaction, they can rely on assumptions as to the persistence and generality of psychological traits as a means of predicting his present and future behavior. That's fucking weird. Hmm. If they know of or know the individual by virtue of experience prior to the interaction, okay, they can rely on assumptions as to persistence and generality of psychological traits as a means of predicting his present and future behavior. However, during the period in which the individual is in the immediate presence of the others, few events may occur which directly provide the others with the conclusive information they will need if they are to direct wisely their own activity. Hmm. Okay, so if they are wise with their own experiences and the person's activity, that's where they get their informed, conclusive information of the presentation of self. So it's not only about obviously listening to what a person says about their social economic status and all that jazz. It's also using your own wise encounters, inclusive information. Okay, so many crucial facts lie beyond the time and place of interaction or lie concealed within it. For example, the true or real attitudes, beliefs, and emotions of the individual can be ascertained only indirectly through his avowals. So I don't know what the AVOWALS. Oh Lord, really? I've never even heard that before. Let's see. An affirmation of the truth or what you believe. How do you pronounce that? Avowal, 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 to Avowal. That sounds really weird. How do you pronounce that? Avowal. Where did they come up with this shit? Oh, I said it wrong. A vowel. It sounds like a vowel.
A vowel.
A vow, AVOWAL, a vow, which means an affirmation. A vow. Never heard of that. Well, there you go. I will write that down because, I be writing affirmations, and that's just another way of saying a word of power. Hmm. An affirmation of the truth of what you believe, of what you believe. Ooh. An affirmation of truth of what you believe. It's an honest admission, and a vow is a way of owning up to or declaring something. A vow. To avow is to acknowledge or claim something. Did anybody else know that? Avow. It because it's almost like vow. It has vowel in there to take a vow, right? To take an oath, a commitment. I've just never heard of a vow. Anyway, moving on. So what were they saying about a vow? For example, the true or real attitudes, beliefs, and emotions of the individual can be ascertained only indirectly through his avowals or through what appears to be involuntary expressive behavior. Okay. Okay, gotcha. So basically, a person declares what they are. I am a CEO. This is what I love to do. I don't know how many people are at my door. And then it says, through what appears to be involuntary expressive behavior. Similarly, if the individual offers the others a product or service, they will often find that during the interaction, there will be no time and place immediately available for eating the pudding that the proof can be found in. They will be forced to accept some events as conventional or natural signs of something not directly available to the senses. The individual will have to act so that he intentionally or unintentionally expresses himself, and the others will in turn have to be impressed in some way. So, okay, I think I remember this guy's theory. He's all referring to like the stage and play act that we put on with one another, especially in the presence of others. Like, this is exactly what he's talking about. Especially when he says the individual will have to act so that the intentionality or unintentionally, oh, I'm sorry, so that the intentionally or unintentionally expresses himself, and the others will in turn have to be impressed in some way by him. Like, who in the hell is out here trying to impress people? But what they say is it naturally, and people, not all the time. And I completely fucking disagree. I don't naturally try to impress people because I naturally did that for a very fucking long time. And it will naturally get you motherfucking used. Why the fuck you out here impressing people for what? Sorry. Was that too much information? My bad. I just don't see the point. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm just gonna start right there. The expressiveness of the individual and therefore his capacity to give impressions appears to involve two radically different kinds of sign activity. What? The expressiveness of the individual and therefore his capacity to give impressions appears to involve two radically different kinds of sign activity. Okay. The expression that he gives and the expression that he gives off. Hmm. Hmm. Verbal, nonverbal cues. Is that what you're talking about? The first involves verbal symbols. Look at that. The first involves verbal symbols or their substitute, which he uses admittedly and solely to convey the information that he and the others are known to attach to these symbols. This is communication in the traditional and narrow sense. Yes, indeed. The second involves a wide range of action that others can treat as symptomatic of the actor. The expectation being that the action was performed for reasons other than the information conveyed in this way. Ah. Hmm. Like, why you gotta say you a CEO like that? Like, nobody really cares that you're a fucking CEO. Like, what is your job? Like, what do you do? You a CEO? Okay, well, there. How many CEOs are there? So I was like, what is the point of saying, okay, well, I'm a CEO? I'm just speaking like in general terms. I know a lot of people who own their own business, maybe a few CEOs. It's kind of like the big ego, like if you're a doctor or whatever. And I don't judge people if they say that they're a doctor or not, but it's like the attitude, the big ego is like, oh, okay, well, I'm a doctor. Well, okay, doctor, how many people did you save today? Why don't you just say that you're a savior? You save people instead of saying that you're a CEO, that you're a boss. Just say what you do in that position outside is just being CEO. What is your company? What is your business? So that's why I always also go to not what only is their social economic status, but like what's behind their social economic status. Is it you, the robot, being programmed by the system, or is you doing something to really give back? Because that's what I look for. Okay, good. You went to school all those years. Okay. To be a doctor to earn that status. Yeah, I get that. Um, okay, well, let's just say, well, I helped a lot of people today. I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud to be a doctor. I really helped a lot of people today instead of just saying I'm a doctor. No shade. I'm not judging. I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying, like, how we present ourselves to each other. It's like kind of twisted and backwards. Taking communication in both its narrow, which is verbal, because we can just tell a motherfucker anything, right? And broad sense, which is how we express what we're saying. One finds that when the individual is in the immediate presence of others, his activity will have a promissory character. A promissory character. That is true, but a lot of people I know, especially my family, don't. Maybe they do put on, it's just like in their own different way, but some people are just like, I don't give a fuck. This is just who I am and my family. What do I need to front for? Who am I putting on for? But that could be something different instance if you were to take that person out of their environment where they feel secure and comfortable in, and you will put them in a whole entirely different environment, okay, with different culture, different class, different setting, and see if the presentation of self, so to speak, is still there, they're still lax, or will they try to switch it up to adjust to the environment? Because I seem to think of myself as being adaptable, but I also think that I am a leader no matter where I go. So it will be very difficult for me to switch up because my presentation of self is, it is what it is. Anyway, so taking communication in both its narrow and broad sense, one finds that when the individual is in the immediate presence of others, his activity will have promissory character. The others are likely to find that they must accept the individual on faith, offering him a just return. I hope I'm reading the pages right. Yep, okay. The others are likely to find that they must accept the individual on faith, offering him as a just return while he is present before them in exchange for something whose true value will not be established until after he has left his presence. So you definitely have to get like a picture of someone up close, not from a distance. I think it's interesting how he just said, offering him a just return while he is in presence before them in exchange for something whose true value will not be established until after he has left his presence. So basically, we will give this person how they express themselves, their jobs, whatever people value. So we're looking at that presentation, okay, how it's expressive and comes off, but in the presence of that person through that exchange, we will give them like a just type of interaction. Well, basically, we're not going to confront them like, "Oh boy, you lying, girl, you lying. You don't do that. You don't say that. You don't do that right then and there. You do that after the fact." You pretty much just measure them after the essence and the presence of them have left the space. Like how you feel, your senses, what they say, their verbal, their nonverbal cues, and yeah. Okay. All right. I feel like I don't need to write any of this down. I did want to write. So I started reading this just a little bit before 4 o'clock, and I'll probably take a break in 10, 15 minutes. Cool water. I think I've seen you on here before, right? A vowel. A vowel. A vowel. Yeah, that is an interesting word to use, but I can see how they're using it, especially like in this time period. Now, this sociologist, he passed away in 1960, so he is in one of those old ancient German, European sociologists or theorists that United States based a lot of their systems on. This guy, I believe, Goffman, was actually born in Canada, but he studied in France. So, like some of his terminology, like using a word, a vowel, um, may fit just based on where he's been. I mean, I would just say affirmation, but I did write it down anyhow, just in case I want to use it again, so somebody else can look it up. So I want to type something. I want to type basically how when we are in the face of a person, how we give them like a just interaction. Hmm. Too bad I can't highlight this and copy and paste. So sad. And I don't want to download it because I don't want to have that all on my computer. The others are likely to find that they. I gotta open the window. Sorry. This incense is killing me though. Like dying. The others are likely to find that they must accept the individual by faith offering. That they must accept the individual on faith. offering him a just return while he is in the present. For them in exchange for my goodness. For them in exchange for something. The Presentation of Self by Goffman. Mm. Whose true value would not be established until after. Whose true value will not be until after the encounter, until after he has left their presence. Hmm. It's out of my face. The security that they justifiably feel in making inferences about the individual will vary, of course, depending on such factors as the amount of information they already possess about him. But no amount of such past evidence can entirely obviate the necessity of acting on the basis of inferences, as William the First Thomas suggested. No, they are not using William the who as William. Oh, William L. Thomas suggested. It is also highly important for us to realize that we do not, as a matter of fact, lead our lives, make our decisions, and reach our goals in everyday life, either statistically or scientifically. We live by inference. I am, let us say, your guess. You do not know, you cannot determine scientifically that I will not steal your money or your spoons. Ugh, these, like, and that's the worst quote I've ever read. Let us now turn from the others to the point of view of the individual who presents himself before them. He may wish them to think highly of him, or to think that he thinks highly of them, or to perceive how, in fact, he feels towards them, or to obtain no clear cut impression. He may wish to ensure sufficient harmony so that the interaction can be sustained, or to defraud, get rid of, confuse, mislead, antagonize, or insult them. Regardless of the particular objective which the individual has in mind and of his motive for having his objective, it will be in his interest to control the conduct of the others, especially their responsive treatment of him. This control is achieved largely by influencing the definition of the situation which the others come to formulate. And he can influence his definition. Geez, 444. And he can influence this definition by expressing himself in such a way as to give them the kind of impression that will lead them to act voluntarily in accordance with his own plan. Ah! Psychopaths. That's too much work. Thus, when an individual appears in the presence of others, there will usually be some reason for him to mobilize his activity so that it will convey an impression to others which it is in his interest to convey. And that could be anything, like what you wear doesn't have to be what you say, it could just be what you wear. You show up with holes in your, if I see holes anywhere in your clothing, I'm gonna be like, why you got holes in your clothing? Why? Why? Why is there holes in your clothing? Right. And I only said that because yesterday I was watching live stream and I don't know, it was this guy was on there and he wasn't bad looking or whatever, but he had on his sweatshirt, he lifted up his arm and then there was like a fucking hole on his sweatshirt and I'm thinking like, why? Why? Why is there a hole in your sweatshirt? Why? Maybe he's trying to convey something because yeah, that might be crazy, but maybe that's something I should ask about myself. Why do I care if a fucking person has holes in their clothes or not? Why? Why does that matter? Why? Because when I go places, people look at me like I am from outer space. No, but I am in Portland, Oregon. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, they have another weird quote. Okay, since a girl's dormitory mates will glean evidence of her popularity from the calls she received on the phone, we can suspect that some girls will arrange for calls to be made. Really? And Willard, I guess so. People have a bored. They just be doing weird shit, I guess. I just would never consider people will go leaps and bounds to like portray themselves to be popular by having people call their cell phone often. People just call my cell phone often. You need to, that's kind of weird. It has been reported by many observers that a girl who is called, oh, I've already read that. Hmm. Let's read again. It has been reported by many observers that a girl who is called to the telephone in the dormitories will often allow herself to be called several times in order to give all the other girls ample opportunity to hear her page. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So she's putting on for other girls, basically. I never. Of the two kinds of communication, expressions given and expressions given off, this report will be primarily concerned with the latter, with the more theatrical, yeah, with the more theatrical and contextual kind, the nonverbal, presumably, some words just don't roll off. Presumably unintentional kind, whether this communication be purposely engineered or not. An example of what we must try to example, I would like to cite a novelistic incident in which Preeti, a vacationing Englishman, makes his first appearance on the beach of his summer hotel in Spain. So let's see, I'll read this quick little blurb. I'm gonna take a break. This isn't hard. It's just like, okay, what's the point? It is interesting, so I'll keep reading it. I especially like when they're talking about people putting on, people going extensive ways to put on, get the attention of the people in their surroundings. I think I find that very interesting. For reasons we will have to talk another time. So now they want to talk about this example. They want to examine this guy called Preety, who's a vacationing Englishman, makes his first appearance on the beach of his summer hotel in Spain. And it just starts out and says, but in any case, he took care to avoid catching anyone's eye. But in any case, he took care to avoid catching anyone's eye. First of all, he had to make it clear to those potential companions of his holiday that they were of no concern to him whatsoever. He stared through them, round them, over them, eyes lost in space. The beach might have been empty. If by chance a ball was thrown his way, he looked surprised, then let a smile of amusement lighten his face. Looked round dazed to see that there were people on the beach, tossed it back with a smile to himself and not a smile at the people, and then resumed carelessly his nonchalant survey of space. Very okay. This almost sounds like me. I ain't gonna even fucking cap. But it was time to institute a little parade, the parade of the ideal Preety. By devious handlings, he gave any by devious handlings, he gave anyone who wanted to look a chance to see the title of his book, a Spanish translation of Homer classic thus. But not daring cosmopolitan, oh my god, cosmopolitan. Okay, I'm sorry. That a Spanish translation of Homer classic thus, but anyway, by devious handlings he gave away who. Wait, I'm sorry, my bad. That's why I know it's time for me to take a break. By devious handlings he gave any who wanted to look. Why would they word it that way? That's blowing my mind. That's so weird. It's just their style of writing. By devious handlings, he gave any who wanted to look a chance to see the title of his book. Was this a poem? A Spanish translation of Homer classic thus, but not daring cosmopolitan. And then gathered together his beach wrap and bag into a neat sand resistant pile, rose slowly to stretch at ease his huge frame, and toss aside his sandals. The marriage of Preety and the seal, there were alternative rituals. The first involved the stroll that turns into a run and a dive straight into the water, thereafter smoothing into a strong, splashless crawl towards the horizon. But of course, not really to the horizon. Quite suddenly, he would turn onto his back and thrash great white splashes with his legs, somehow thus showing that he could have swum further had he wanted to, and then would stand up a quarter out of water for all to see who it was. The alternative course was simpler. It avoided the cold water shock and it avoided the risk of appearing too high spirited. The point was to appear to be so used to the sea, the Mediterranean in this particular beach, that one might as well be in the sea as of it. It involved a slow stroll down and into the edge of the water, not even noticing his toes were wet. Land and water all the same to him. With his eyes up at the sky, gravely surveying portents, invisible to others, of the weather. The novelist means us to see that Preeti is improperly concerned with the extensive impressions he feels his sheer bodily action is giving off to those around him. Oh my God. We can malign Preeti further by assuming that he has acted merely in order to give a particular impression, that this is a false impression, and that the others present receive either no impression at all, or worse still, the impression that Preeti is affected, trying to cause them to receive this particular impression. Oh my God. But the important point for us here is that the kind of impression Pretty thinks he is making is, in fact, the kind of impression that others correctly and incorrectly glean from someone in their midst. I have said that when an individual appears before others, his actions will influence the definition of the situation which they come to have. Sometimes the individuals will act in a thoroughly calculating manner, expressing himself in a given way solely in order to give the kind of impression to others that is likely to evoke from them a specific response he is concerned to obtain. Okay, I'll put a pin in that one. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think a lot of people do that too. And I can only just use that, from my own perspective too. Um, Especially like working with this page, and I have another YouTube page also, and I have another YouTube page also, and I really wanted to do lives on my other backup pages because I ain't gonna even lie, this is like my real, this is the official page. With the subscribe counts that I have, this is my official page. But I was just thinking yesterday, like, man, I really want to just go live more often, while I'm at work, while I'm at the gym, while I'm at the store, while I'm doing this, while I'm at the park, while I'm around in Portland doing this or that. And then, like, another part of me spoke up, was like, girl, why don't you do that from your other page? You don't want to do that here. Sorry, I don't even know. Chop, I broke her 1 second. I'm like, you don't want to do that on this page. You don't want people all up in your business and all that other shit. And I'm like saying to myself, thinking back to myself, like, listen, I don't give a fuck. I don't know how long I'm gonna keep saying I don't give a fuck. What is there to hide? Like, about my life. There's not much. There's more to come, more to see. There's more than this boring aspect, what I'm saying, atmosphere and all that. Practically, yeah, there's more to me than just studying all the time. And I feel like, I'm going to do that on this page and not do it on my other page, because what's the point? I don't give a fuck. So, like, an old part of me is still trying to speak up and be like, girl, you know what I'm saying? I can hear my family, my older ancestors in my mind, like, those who are used to being the same consistently all the time and not evolving. And I'm like, listen, I don't. Anyway, because there's a lot going on. I guess I learned a new word. People still have multiple phones to look important. That is weird. Yeah, I wouldn't have multiple phones unless I was, multiple businesses, not for a show of other. That is a little weird. The average influencer. Okay. You are so correct. You are so correct. And I don't know if any influencer content creator can get out and around from that, not being tied to like one specific niche, because that is what all the algorithms and that's what all the algorithms I'm gonna drink some water. Hold on 1 second. That's what all the algorithms are based on, are your niches, right? Fuck, I live by a fucking parking lot. If y'all heard that conversation, they're getting ready to have a good day. Right on. And that was another main concern for me also, was just finding one niche and to stick with it. Because with my mind, I feel like I can go into any different category and work there, but you can only kind of sort of be successful in like in one niche area, not so much in like a different areas at one time. So Yeah, that's why influencers always switch it up and they put on for different people all the time for more followers and for this or that. But that's just what people are doing nowadays. I was actually watching a vlog and it was I love watching vlogs. It was this person who's the most basic I have ever seen, and what this person does from day to day is the most basic activity, and even that in within itself is like a niche, just being basic. Like everything is in categories for people to follow and to be something other than, even if you are just basic, right? Even if you are just like this basic individual. Anyway, I'm gonna put you on hold for 1 second. I was trying to go outside, but I figured like when I was outside, everybody else is outside. So, yeah. So even if you are like basic, they still will they will exploit the basic part also. Ain't that crazy? I'll be right back, y'all. 1 second. Whoop whoop. Come on back. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, as you can see, new, normal. Yo, why does it keep going to the wrong thing? Awesome. Is that better? Awesome. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I gotta get back to reading. It's still a little early. I think I'm gonna probably break out in a couple hours. Get up out of here. Basically, what I was just saying that once all these people start making so much money, once they start accepting these brand deals, they are no longer their individual self. They have basically sold themselves to the brand. They make a lot of money, but is it the money that's driving them in the morning? Or is it just their love of creating that's driving them in the morning? Because money can be the motive, but at the beginning and the end of the day, how are you giving back? Basically, what I was just saying, all that, and how, like, a lot of these creators, they start out, independently and they work their way up, you know, grassroots, however, organically or not, mechanically or not. And like I said, they become the brand once they start making so much money, accepting so many deals. They become the brand. They're no longer independent. They no longer have their own voice. They no longer can show specific things on their video. They can no longer say certain things. They are just like the robot niche entirely. Yes, indeed. But anyway, I thought I saw everything, honestly. Especially when I watch the vlog, the vlog of the lady who is the most basic, who does the most basic shit, who wears the most basic things, nothing stand out or nothing that's like out of the ordinary. And even that is a niche, even just being basic, even that's a niche. What the fuck? I'm like, I've seen everything. Because in your vlogs you have even some homeless people, right? Some homeless people be vlogging and be streaming, right? And then you get like the vloggers who makes millions of dollars or however, right? All in a way is kind of exploitated. In the how, in the how, in the how, in the how. Okay, I'm gonna go in here and re-warm up my tea. You are welcome to come back for a little bit more reading. But I gotta finish this because I have to move on and do something else because I got some projects that's due tomorrow. No, on Sunday, and I'm trying to get them done tomorrow. So I'm gonna be doing this for a couple hours and then go out for a little bit, and I gotta come back and do some more, and then work on my other projects. Yeah. For sure. I don't know. I think it's very creative. Like just how her style is so basic because now she's building herself up. You know what I mean? So she's might have started as just, having 10 of the same black shirts and 12 of the same khakis that she wears every day. But now all of a sudden I see her trying to like make herself up in her vlogs and making that something of new and interest. So maybe that was just like her marketing scheme altogether. Like, okay, well, look at this basic girl, something somebody can all relate to. She's not going all out with long nails, long hair, going on these extravagant trips, driving around in all these luxury cars, right? She started out just like your average regular girl. And I'm not saying that basic is mean or anything. I'm just saying, like, I see that how she made that as a niche for herself. And now the trajectory is changing. Like now she's trying to doll herself up little by little by little. So I'm thinking like that was probably like her little marketing plan that she came up, which was smart because I see some other people got little smart marketing schemes online. Yeah. Like one I saw not that long ago. I normally don't watch Gossip Channel, but she's a popular gossip blogger, YouTuber, whatever, and nobody knew that of her sexual orientation until recently. She was born a male, and nobody knew that. She sprung it on us, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was a really smart and strategic way of gaining followers. We all thought she was a girl, a woman. I mean, I was fooled because I can't even lie. Well, first of all, her face was off of the videos entirely, so nobody even knew what she looked like until she said that she was a trans, and then that's when she started putting the picture up. We were just going off of her voice, and so I'm like, okay, these people kind of little witty with their little marketing. Okay. All right, y'all. Give me uno momento. Or whoever else is here. I don't even know who is here. I'll be right back. People are so loud. I would want for the content that I've been creating for years, which is not, I don't think I would call it content, I would call it intellectual property. I would like to see that and I don't know what's the proper word, but like a professional office setting that deals with mental illness and mental health, somewhere where you get free services for counseling. I kind of see my stuff in those avenues, or just staying in that niche. I don't even know, like with millions of followers, because it is the type of intellectual property where I'm not even sure. I don't know. I'm not going to even downgrade myself. I ain't going to even lie and say that not, a million people won't be able to hear or reach what I had developed, but it's like a in the middle kind of like content topic type of shit. I don't know. Yeah, I just prefer mines to be seen like in professional setting, like in a psychologist's office, that like we can get free counseling, therapy, settings like that. Now, if they actually have books like that already at these type of offices, probably not. And I would do like holistic health, any alternative clinic, something like that, where my literature will be. Um, yeah, jeez, I can barely deal with like a couple people. Imagine a million people. Yikes! Right. Sure does. I don't think people really understand the word influencer. Just saying like YouTuber altogether kind of like lowers your value of information. People really won't take you seriously unless you come with credentials already as a profession. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say influencer, but that's what they're trying to put people in. They want people to influence others. Let's see. What? Yeah, because I wouldn't call myself an influencer. Why don't you just call yourself like an educator then? I don't know. I wouldn't even say I'm an educator, but instead of saying influencer. So, what kind of content are you into, anyhow? Mr. Cool Water, I think you one of my last few subscribers. Hmm. This thing. I'm gonna turn on the light. Let's see. Just did it alive. was actually wondering if I can play the lecture on this live stream, but I don't think I can do that. I know like the school is protected in some way about like their material getting out online. Okay, so let me see if I can find any other information on here that's information, I mean, important. I'm on page 5. I got 5 more pages to go in this interpretation of self, right? Interpretation, the presentation of self. Almost like the interpretation of self. So the name of this PDF is called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life by Irving Goffman. Goffman is or was a sociologist born in Canada. He studied a little bit here in Americas, but the bulk of his professional studies, um, it was just like the Institute of the Mind or whatever. He was a professor. It was based off of like his coursework called like the Institution of the Mind or however. So he's a sociologist. His framework is based upon like I would say like the interpretation of self, like how we put on for others and how people do the same as well. It's like this whole stage enact play type of motion, and it's more than what I thought it was. I thought, it was anyway, it's more than what I thought it was. He is definitely given like this whole drama stage act and scene type of interplay of actions between one another, and in a way to um, portray yourself as being something that you're not. Like the girl who had a cell phone and she would let the phone calls ring more than it needed to just to get the attention of the girls in her environment and things like that. And then there was another example of the guy at the beach who pretended that you know what I'm saying, like he was the only one hanging out at the beach, and he put on a play in a way that he wasn't like the water didn't affect him, how cold it was, and how he waved and swam inside of the water. He gave off that he could do more, but he just didn't want to, and kind of like this really low key, pretentious type of behavior. So those were the two examples that Goffman has given us of the presentation of the self so far. So, like I said, I'm on page 5. Or I'm on page. Yep, here we are. Okay. I have said that when we probably already read this, but this is close enough to where I was anyhow. I have said that when an individual appears before others, his actions will influence the definition of the situation which they come to have. I'm sorry, I gotta shut that window. I have said, let me make sure. I have said that when an individual appears before others, his actions will influence the definition of the situation which they come to have. Sometimes the individual will act in a thoroughly calculating manner, expressing himself in a given way solely in order to give the kind of impression to others that is likely to evoke from them a specific response he is concerned to obtain. See, that's exactly what I was saying. And you were saying too about the influencers, even about the lady that I saw. I've subscribed to her no more or less that, she's the most basic person ever. She wears the most basic things, but I liked her because her videos are so calm. They're not raging with a bunch of loud rap music all the time. And it's just super mellow and quiet and sweet. And she's just super casual. So, okay, moving on. Sometimes the individual be calculating in his activity, be relatively unaware that this is the case. Sometimes he will intentionally and consciously express himself in a particular way, but chiefly because the tradition of his group or social status require this kind of expression, and not because of any particular response other than vague acceptance or approval that is likely to be evoked from those impressed by the expression. Sometimes the traditions of an individual's role will lead him to give a well designed impression of a particular kind, and yet he may neither consciously nor unconsciously dispose to create such an impression. The others, in their turn, may be suitably impressed by the individual's efforts to convey something, or may misunderstand the situation and come to conclusion that are warranted neither by the individual's intent nor by the facts. In any case, and so far as the others act as if the individual has conveyed a particular impression, we may take a functional or pragmatic view and say that the individual has effectively projected a given definition of the situation and effectively fostered the understanding that a given state of affairs obtained. Oh my God. Okay, in any case, insofar as the others act, because they have it in italicized, they have act as if in italicized, the individual has conveyed a particular impression. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So we both are acting, mainly, we're both acting off of the expression of one another, mainly, because it says, insofar as the others, speaking of the one who isn't expressing, who's more observing, act as if the individual has conveyed a particular impression. We may take a functional or pragmatic view and say that the individual has effectively projected a given definition of the situation. Mhm. And effectively foster the understanding that a given state of affair obtains. There is one aspect of the other's response that bears special comment here. Knowing that the individual is likely to present himself in a light that is favorable to him, the others may divide what they witness into two parts. A part that is relatively easy for the individual to manipulate at will, being chiefly his verbal assertions, and a part in regard to which he seems to have little concern or control, being chiefly derived from the expression he gives off. But knowing that the individual is likely to present himself in a light that is favorable to him, the others may divide what they witness into two parts. A part that is relatively easy for the individual to manipulate at will. Okay. Being chiefly his verbal assertions, and a part in regard to which he seems to have little concern or control, being chiefly derived from expressions he gives off. Oh, okay, so he's just still talking about the verbal and nonverbal cues that he gives off. Okay, but yeah. Okay, knowing that the individual is likely. So that's page 7. Knowing that the individual is likely to present himself in a light. The individual. Speculative fiction. Mhm, 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 mhm. Mhm, mhm. Yep. Ah, I see something. Mm. So, where do you get your ideas from to write? Yeah, I like that. It's I don't know why it keeps going off the page. Why is it doing that? Yikes. Whatever. A part that is relatively easy for the individual to manipulate. That is relatively easy for a individual to manipulate. Mm, that's real, being chiefly his verbal assertions. Being chiefly his verbal assertions. And a part in regard to which he seems to have little concern or control of himself. A part where he has little control of himself through express. I'm just going to put expressiveness. What did I say? From the expressions he gives off, same difference. The part where he has little control of himself through expressiveness. The others may then use what are considered to be the ungovernable aspects of his expressive behavior as a check upon the validity of what is conveyed by the governable aspects. Okay, so the others may then use what are considered to be the ungovernable aspects of his expressive behavior as a check upon the validity of what is conveyed by the governable aspects. Okay. In this, a fundamental um, asymmetry is demonstrated in the communication process. The individual presumably presumably, no, I still have an issue saying that word. Presumably, being aware of only one stream of his communication. Aha. The witness of this stream and one other. For example, and what? For example, in Shetland, and it's spelled Shetland, Isle, one Crofter's wife. Okay, I probably never heard of this place before, and he's probably talking about somewhere in Europe. Yeah. So in Shetland Isle, one Crofter's wife, in serving native dishes to a visitor from the mainland of Britain, would listen with a polite smile to his polite claims of liking what he was eating. At the same time, she would take note of the rapidity with the visitor lifted his fork or spoon to his mouth, the eagerness with which he passed food into his mouth, and the gusto expressed in chewing the food, using the signs as a check on the stated feeling. Hold on 1 second, y'all. 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Come on, come on, come on. I gotta do an email right quick. Come on, come on, come on. See if I find it. This is like a totally new. Okay, sent. What? How is it even in this email? I'm like not even in that email. Like, why am I getting messages from this email? Hold on 1 second, y'all. I gotta click off of here and use my phone. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. No, what was I doing? Okay. So we were writing. Okay. Knowing that the individual is likely to present himself in a light that is favorable to him, the others may divide what they perceive in two parts. A part that is relatively easy for the individual to manipulate at will, being chiefly his verbal assertions. A part where he has little control of himself through expressiveness. Gosh, let's see how I didn't like this page. What page? How did I get all the way to this page? Okay, it should be over here. Oh, okay. So we're reading about the example of the Shetland Isle. One crofter's wife is serving native dishes to a visitor from the mainland of Britain. Will listen with a polite smile to his polite claims of liking what he was eating. At the same time, she would take note of the rapidity, the rapid action with which the visitor lifted his fork or spoon to his mouth, the eagerness with which he passed food into his mouth, and the gusto expressed in chewing the food until the signs as a check on the stated feeling of the eater. The same woman, in order to discover what one acquaintance A actually thought of another acquaintance, B would wait until B was in the presence of A, but engage in the conversation with still another person. C, she then covertly examined the facial expressions of A as he regarded B in the conversation with C, not being in conversation with B and not being directly observed by him. A would sometimes relax unusual constraints and tactful deceptions and freely express what he was actually feeling about B. This Shetlander, in short, would observe the unobserved observer. I gotta read that again. I got lost. I'm like, hold on, my bad. I gotta read that again. What in the hell? What in the hell? I'm sure it's simple because something so simple they have to like define it in like I don't the fucking weirdest way on how they describe philosophers and well in this case it's sociologist. So this PDF is called presentation of self. Oh my goodness. Okay. The others may then use what are considered to be the ungovernable aspects of his expressive behavior as a check upon the validity of what is conveyed by the governable aspects. Okay, so the governable aspects are basically just how he is saying things, is what he is saying matching up with his expressiveness, basically. But he put governable aspects. So those is that governable or did he say ungovernable? Oh my god. Oh, the others may then use what are considered to be the ungovernable aspects of his expressive behavior as a check upon the validity. Okay, yeah, so the ungovernable are the checks, the real checks basically of the validity of what is conveyed by the governable aspects. So the governable aspects are those that are within boundaries and standards that can be easily conveyed. But the nonverbal cues, his expressiveness, are the ungovernable behaviors that he leaves out. So he says, and this, like their writing is weird, and this a fundamental asymmetry is demonstrated in the communication process. The individuals presumably being aware of only one stream of his communication, the witness of this stream and one other. Hmm. Okay, there we go. Three people. For example, in Shetland Island, one crofter's wife in serving native dishes to a visitor from the mainland, blah, blah, blah. We already got that. Let's get to point A. The same women, in order to discover what one acquaintance A actually thought of another acquaintance B, would wait until B was in the presence of A, but engage in conversation still another person. C. Oh, okay. So she's just trying to convey what who A or B is by being with the C person. She would then covertly examine the facial expressions of A as he regarded B in conversations with C, not being in conversations with B and not directly observed by him. A would sometimes relax unusual constraints. Hmm. A would sometimes relax unusual constraints and tactful deceptions. I wonder what those were. And freely express what he was actually feeling about B. The Shetlander, in short, would observe the unobserved observer. Oh, gotcha. That's okay. That's what they meant. Because I thought they were talking about the guy, but they're talking about her, the waitress, observing the unobserver. She's observing, you know, his involuntary and his voluntary cues while he's responding and replying to um, this person B that he's sitting at the table with, or however. And that's how basically how she's just getting the perception is his nonverbal and verbal cues. That basically that's what I'm fucking saying. but they're just using like this third person, third party to throw it in there, you know, from like a distance observance type of nature instead of like not up front. Yeah, I'm not really from Portland, so pretty sure not. Considering I think there's like 3% black. I don't know. Yeah, the ghettos are different. I'm not from here. I don't know. It's kind of sad. I was getting ready to say black people, but I didn't want to correlate black people in ghettos and hoods and projects and things like that. Everybody else does. Okay. We're almost done. So I'm still on page 5. We've got 5 more pages to go. Let me know if you're learning anything new. I'll just try to figure out like what is the point? Okay, now given the fact that others are likely to check up on the more controllable aspects of behavior by means of the less controllable, which he used before, the governable and the ungovernable behaviors, one can expect that sometimes the individual will try to exploit this very possibility, guiding the impression he makes through behavior felt to be real. Sorry, I'm gonna butcher the most simplest words. Reliability, something like that. I think so. Guiding the impression he makes through behaviors felt to be reliably informing. For example, in gaining admission to a tight social circle, the the participant observer may only wear an acceptable look while listening to an informant, but may also be careful to wear the same look when observing the informant talking to others. Observers of the observer will then not as easily discover where he actually stands. I do that all the time. See, you got to see. I know exactly what they mean because people be peeping and they be watching. They see how you act and interact with this person or that person, and they treat you based on that. They treat you as the observer of the observer. Oh my god! I'm like, like honestly, grocery store I shop at, um, friendly to most of the people except for one particular person who's I don't know. I don't say hi. I don't feel comfortable because it's just I don't know. Anyway, oh my god, I'm pretty sure he observed me saying hi to most of the people because they're being friendly back and saying hi. And one last weekend, Saturday, I accidentally said hi to him because I was like in incredibly good mood. So by mistake, I accidentally said hi to him. Right, guy in the dry section of the grocery store and shit. And he just looked at me. I was like, I can't even blame you because, I be speaking to other motherfucking people though, honestly, which is, I just didn't feel, I know, my bad. Sorry, but not sorry. I didn't feel comfortable speaking to him because of how he would be fucking looking at me in the goddamn store. Like, I don't know, it was weird. And when I accidentally said hi to him the motherfucking morning, he just looked at me. I was like, yeah, this is why. Because he's been observing me and around the fucking store, talking to other fucking people. When I get to him, I'm like, curve. I don't care if his mean is just some. Yeah, you're just not meant to be friendly and nice to everybody. They say you should, you're supposed to, but anyway, um, anyway, So that's a big duh movement. For example, in gaining admission, hopefully I didn't read this over already. For example, we're on page 6. For example, in gaining admission to a tight social circle, the participant observer may not only wear an accepting look while, yeah, I am reading it over, while listening to an informant, but may also be careful to wear the same look when observing the informant talking to others. Observers of the observer will then not as easily discover where he actually stands. A specific illustration may be cited from Shetland Isle. When a neighbor dropped in to have a cup of tea, he would ordinarily wear at least a hint of an expected warm smile as he passed through the door into the cottage. Oh my God, am I speaking shit into existence? Since lack of physical obstructions outside the cottage and lack of light within it usually made it possible to observe the visitor unobserved as he approached the house. Islanders sometimes took pleasure in watching the visitor drop whatever expression he was manifesting and replaced it with a sociable one just before reaching the door. However, some visitors, in appreciating that this examination was occurring, would blindly adopt a social face a long distance from the house, thus ensuring the projection of a concentrated image. You see what I'm saying? How much bullshit this put on? People be putting on these masks and faces, and yeah, it takes up much mental energy, and people are exploiting you, and based on that, by observing you, by observing your ungoverned actions, people are exploiting that shit. And then the person has all this mental activity to try to put on the whole fucking mask, and at the same time it's not only physical, it's playing off like in the spiritual realm as well. That's how you're getting so fucking exploitive. Those in the spirit is laughing at you like, look at this motherfucker living alive, ain't even living, ain't even alive, about to put on a whole mask to go visit another motherfucking person that's no better and greater than you. But you're doing all these Olympics in your mind to put on a show for another fucking person that's going to exploit you based on the face and the mask that you put on. Not only are you getting physically exploited, you're getting spiritually exploited too. Because those in the spirit is the ones, I think, is the ones who really be pulling the motherfucking strings. This kind of control upon the part of the individual reinstates the symmetry of the communication process and sets the stage for a kind of information game, a potentially infinite cycle of concealment, discovery, false revelation, and rediscovery. Rediscovery. Rediscovery again? This kind of control upon the part of the individual reinstates the symmetry of the communication process. And oh, okay, because of the model of the communication that they already have. Okay. And sets the stage for a kind of information game, a potentially infinite cycle of concealment, discovery, false revelation, and rediscovery. Mm. It should be added that since the others are likely to be relatively unsuspicious of the presumably unguided aspect. Oh my God. You read that over. It should be added that since the others are likely to be relatively unsuspicious of the presumably unguided aspect of the individual's conduct, he can gain much by controlling it. See, that's what I was just saying. That's what I was just saying. I was just saying that's how they gain control. hmm The others, of course, may sense that the individual is manipulating the presumably spontaneous aspects of his behavior and seek it this very act of manipulation, some shading of conduct that the individual has not managed to control. This again provides a check upon the individual's behavior. Yep, okay, that's where that rediscovery comes in. Okay, this again provides a check upon the individual's behavior, this time his presumably uncalculated behavior, thus reestablishing the um, asymmetry of the communication process. Okay, here I would like only to add the suggestion that the arts of piercing an individual's effort at, okay, what page is that? 8. Here, I would like only to add the suggestion that the arts of piercing an individual's effort at calculated unintentionality seem better developed than our capacity to manipulate our own behavior, so that regardless of how many steps have occurred in the information game, the witness is likely to have the advantage over the actor. Yep. And the initial um, asymmetry of the communication process is likely to be retained. Wait, let me read that last part again. And the initial symmetry, am I saying that right? So you change your picture, present day society at its best. What does that mean? Present day. Oh, okay. Sorry, I get distracted easily. Oh, um, okay, yep. I'm gonna read that last part. The witness is likely to have the advantage over the actor, and the initial asymmetry of the communication process is likely to be retained. So yeah, the observer is the one who actually has the key ultimately to manipulating those who's putting on the mask, right? This is very interesting. I wonder where he got this information from. If maybe it's just all based on theory, most likely. But yeah, I've always been kind of just aware of the observers only because, like, my mom, I'm not gonna lie, she has always been the observer. She's always been the watcher, the one in the background. You wouldn't even know who's in the background, just watching everybody, watching everybody's interplay, and knows everybody's interplay just by observing, sitting back in the background and watching. And that's just where she prefers to be. It's not in the foreground, but all the way in the back by herself, observing and watching. So just me watching her. um, I'm that type of way anyway. I have to observe before I go into any interaction, because I like to see where I can fit in. I don't want to go into any interaction and like step on people's toes or things like that. I want to, you know, or make, I just like to observe first and see where I would fit in the most in interactions. If not, then I will sit back and reserve my own energy. But I don't so much like to be in the forefront either. I think a lot of people who are more observers probably do have a greater advantage by watching, not the watchers, but those who are watching the interactions of other people, like who's putting on the mask for other people, right? Hmm. Ordinarily, oh, man, I forgot my tea. I think it's still hot. Mm. Ordinarily, it sure is good though. The definitions of the situations projected by the several different participants are sufficiently attuned to one another so that open contradiction will not occur. I do not mean that there will be the kind of consensus that arises when each individual presents candidly, expresses what he really feels, and honestly agrees with the expressed feelings of the others present. This kind of harmony is an optimistic ideal, and in any case, not necessary for the smooth working of society. Oh, my battery's about to die. Let's see. Rather, each participant is expected to suppress his immediate heartfelt feelings. See, that's what I said at the beginning. All right, I have to charge this. I gotta put this thing up here. Oh. When people show you who they are, somehow. No, what if it's your family though? What you gotta say about that, my angel? What if it's your family? What if it's your mom and your dad? It's some one of your guardians, your brother and sister. Believe who them the first time, but then what do you do with that information? Also, I think it's hard. It's easier to do, apply that to strangers, right? But if you apply that same beautiful quote, which I agree with, to your family, well, goddamn, um, I'm trying to like, yeah, right, yeah, I can see that. I mean, yeah, why would it not be applied to family? True facts. Yes, indeed. 'Cause some people, I'll be like, oh God, what is going on? Like, what is happening? All right, where was I? Yep, so they're talking about, okay, I wanted to really just write this down. I wish it was a quicker way. I do have another phone, but I don't feel like getting it and plugging it in and typing on there. So I have to do it from here because I didn't download this PDF. So this kind of control upon the part of the individual reinstates the symmetry of the communication process and sets the stage for a kind of information game, a potentially infinite cycle of concealment, discovery, false revelation, and rediscovery. It should be added that since the others are likely to be relatively oh, unsuspicious of the presumably unguided aspect of the individual's conduct, he can gain much by controlling it. Oh man, I'm already wait. I was way past that part. Dang it. Okay, really? I got that far? That was page 7? I'm on page 8. Oh no, okay, that page is different from the actual page number on the PDF. Ugh, der, der. Mhm. This again provides a check upon the individual's behavior. This time, he presumably, if he says presumably one more time, sorry, this time he presumably uncalculated behavior, thus reestablishing the asymmetry of the communication process. Here, I would like to add the suggestion that the arts of piercing an individual's effort at calculated unintentionality seem better developed than our capacity to manipulate our own behavior, so that regardless of how many steps have occurred in the information game, the witness is likely to have the advantage over the actor, and the initial asymmetry of the communication process is likely to be retained. When we allow the individual projects, when we allow that the individual's projects a definition of the situation when he appears before others, we must also see that the others, however passive their role may seem to be, will themselves effectively project a definition of the situation by virtue of the response to the individual and by the virtue of any lines of action they initiate to him. Ordinarily, the definitions of the situation projected by the several different participants are sufficiently attuned to one another so that open contradiction will not occur. I do not mean that there will be the kind of consensus that arises when each individual present candidly expresses what he really feels and honestly agrees with the expressive feelings of the others present. What he really feels and honestly agrees with the expressed feelings of the others present. Hmm. This kind of harmony is an optimistic ideal and, in any case, not necessary for the smooth working of society. Rather, each participant is expected to suppress his immediate heart. So that's what I wanted to get. Each participant is expected to suppress his immediate heartfelt feelings, conveying a view of the situation which he feels the others will be able to find at least temporarily acceptable. Hmm. Mm. The maintenance of this surface of agreement, this veneer consensus, is facilitated by each participant concealing his own wants behind statements which assert values to which everyone present feels obliged to give lip service. Each participant is expected to suppress his immediate heartfelt feelings. Not I. Mm, yeah, I know. I think like for the most part, your family are like the ops. Sometimes that is just it. They are the ops. I mean, for real. There's nothing more to it. Ooh, child, I got my hair braided today, and I don't know what she did to my neck. I think she snapped it back. My neck hurts. Mm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. You get the signs way early on too. Okay, rather, each participant is expected to suppress. If I can write that up here, I'm gonna lose my page because I keep losing it. So, each participant is expected to suppress his immediate heartfelt feelings. His immediate heartfelt feelings. All right, moving on. Each person is supposed to suppress their heartfelt feelings to benefit the group and not give their own individual selves any value. They did use value, but it was in a different way, though. So I'm just saying that they suppress how they're suppressing their interactions so that to make everybody comfortable, to fit in, to give value more to the group status and not so much as like the individual thinker. Both has its place, groups and individuals, but it's so much of group thinking. And that's why we are socialized because of the group thinking, information process, easy to follow and to track and all that jazz. Okay, the maintenance of the surface of agreement, this veneer of consensus, is facilitated by each participant concealing his own wants behind statements which assert values present to which everyone present feels obliged to give lip service. Further, there is usually a kind of division of definitional labor. Each participant is allowed to establish the tentative official ruling regarding matters which are vital to him but not immediately important to others. Example, the rationalizations and justifications by which he accounts for his past activity. Oh, fuck. In exchange for this courtesy, he remains silent or non committal on matters important to others, but not immediately important to him. Okay, is that what I just said or not? I don't know. We have then a kind of interactional modus vivendi, which MODUSVIVENDI. We then have a kind of interactional modus vivendi. Together, the participants contribute to a single overall definition of the situation, which involves not so much a real agreement as to what exists, but rather a real agreement as to who claims concerning what issues will be temporarily honored. Okay. Real agreement will also exist concerning, we're on page 7 of the presentation of self. Wait for me to get to some more good stuff. Real agreement will also exist concerning the desirability of avoiding an open conflict of definitions of the situation. I will refer to this level of agreement as a working consensus. It is to be understood that the working consensus established in one interaction setting will be quite different in content from the working consensus established in a different type of setting. Mm. Okay, so the same situation, different consensus. Wait, what was it? Real agreement will also exist concerning the desirability of avoiding an open conflict of definitions of the situations. Definition of situations. I refer to this level of agreement as a working consensus. Oh, gotcha. It is to be understood that the working consensus established in one interaction setting will be quite different in content from the working consensus established in a different type of setting. Thus, between two friends at lunch, a reciprocal show of affection, respect, and concern for the others is maintained. In service occupations, on the other hand, the specialist often maintains an image of disinterest, involvement in the problem of the client, while the client responds with a show of respect for the competence and integrity of the specialist, regardless of such differences in content. However, the general form of these working arrangements is the same. If y'all was listening earlier when I was talking about the professional level of doctors and CEO and the value that they put into their job, but he's talking about how we also give them value too on how we treat like these professional people because of their prestige, because of their education. Um, it doesn't matter that they're not giving us attention. It's like we are grateful to be there in their presence because they're a doctor or a CEO. You know what I'm saying? But I want to read what was the first example that they had gave. It is to be understood that the working consistent consensus established in one interaction setting will be quite different in content from the working consensus established in a different type of setting. I don't care. I'm butcher that word every time. Thus, between two friends at lunch. Oh, two friends at lunch. They gave a comparison of two friends at lunch and a professional. Ah, ain't that something? Okay, thus between two friends at lunch, a reciprocal show. I'm sorry. Reciprocal show of affection. I lost my place. Respect and concern for the other is maintained. In servants' occupations, on the other hand, the specialist often maintains an image of disinterest and involvement in the problem of the client, while the client responds with a show of respect for the competence, competence and integrity of the specialist, regardless of such differences in content. However, the general form of these definitional claims made by the others present, we can appreciate the crucial importance of the information that the individual initially possesses or acquire concerning his fellow participants. For it is only the basis of this initial information that the individual starts to define the situation and starts to build up lines and responsive actions. Yes. I think that's interesting how they use like a professional who doesn't give much affection or attention versus just friends when it should be, you know. But I think because of the prestige and the eliteness that comes with our credentials, that kind of separates. Oh, I use this like for real. It's our credentials a lot of times gives us, I don't know, for some, for some reason we like lose affection. We forget that it's okay to give a hug or say something that's just genuinely nice once you have multiple credentials or just one credential that you know we kind of forget that, hey, we're still human. Ooh, child, I need to use this on here. Even Ivy League academies have taken a hit. Oh, they have? How? Doctors and especially lawyers are not as reputable as they should. Yeah, they haven't really kind of never been reputable in my neighborhood and my family. I mean, they would go because they would have to, but they were always like, "Oh, this damn doctor, I gotta go to this goddamn dentist. These don't know what they talking about. They don't know what they doing. They always want me to doing this. I ain't doing that motherfucker shit." That's my family, both sides. But other than that, I mean, outside of that, yeah, of course. Especially like, spaces I am, doctors, A1, all your shots and all your injections, they're like A1. We listen to doctors, they know everything. We need to listen to them. Some people still, place them on like this really high pedestal, and you know, I'm not the one to judge. I mean, hey, use both. Use the doctor, holistic health. Use yourself. Just don't be allowing them to be prescribing you all kinds of mess. Oh, this feels wonderful. I got this at the dollar store. Thank goodness. It's between this and my foam roller on my neck right now. I'm gonna choose to do this. Yeah, lawyers is interesting. I must say, I did not know not one lawyer. Me personally, I do not. I know a few people who went to school for criminal justice, but no one I know right now are reaching levels of lawyers. That's interesting. But what I do like about the field, which might be off and on subject, is that, Malcolm X probably would have been a really good lawyer, at his time. Uh, when I think of lawyer, I would think of somebody like Malcolm X. Oh my God. Johnny Cochran, maybe. Ooh, child. Okay, what else? Yeah, it does. Oh my God, they're so small and it gets right to the really narrow, pointy uh, muscle and bone on your neck right there. You would think it would hurt or it's going in the wrong places, but it gets right on those bony areas. Oh, right there. I don't know if I'm pressed against muscle or bone. It's probably muscle. But yeah, it does. I'm sorry. Give me one moment. So we are on page 7 reading the presentation of self. I'm the one who keeps saying that it's in the interpretation of self. It's almost like in the same alignment. It's by Goffman. He's a sociologist, and then it's called Presentation of Self, and it's a PDF online. For one of my courses that I'm reading. And basically, it's just how we perceive others based on, I won't say different levels, just on different perceptions as the observer, observer, or as the observer, observer, observer. Yep, dollar store. When I went back to find some more, and you can actually feel like the circulation, you know, being activated just by rubbing that area and getting the tension out. You just feel so much more relaxed, and you can feel just like the blood moving, at least I can anyway, a lot more. Child, because if I didn't have this from sitting up and reading, I'd be up somewhere crippled or having to get a massage every day. I'm sure. Yeah, most likely it probably is. My 100%. It's the posture, it's the chair, but number one is for sure the posture. Only because I remember working in one job and someone mentioned, like, oh, well, maybe we all should practice on sitting up straight. And I was like, wait, is that a hit at me or something? Because I can read in between lines. You might be reading, oh, wow, just a chair. This chair sucks. this chair. I didn't get another chair. I keep forgetting to get a different chair. I probably should just go over to my sofa, but I don't want to sit on there. It's too soft. What time is it? I'm trying to actually get done reading this, take a break, move on to something else, and I'm gonna get out of here, get out of this place. Yikes. Oh, that feels lovely. Okay. It was a good reminder to sit up straight, anyhow. Okay. So, what is he talking about? So, all right. So, what is the point of him saying the working consensus won't work in another different situation? So, I'm trying to let's get to the bottom line of why he used those two lax examples. What was the point? I mean, because he's just saying like he's not saying like ordinary people, he's just saying like ordinary interactions between friends versus going to a professional, like the interaction and affection is cut off, like okay, in the presentation of self. So where was I? Regardless of such differences in content, however, the general form of these working arrangements is the same. In noting the tendency for a participant to accept the definitional claims made by the others present, we can appreciate the crucial importance of the information that the individual initially possesses or acquiring concerning his fellow participants. For it is on the basis of this initial information that the individual starts to define the situation and starts to build up lines of responsive action. Aha. The individual's initial projection commits him to what he is proposing to be and requires him to drop all pretenses of being other things. As the interaction among the participants progresses, additions and modifications in this initial informational state will, of course, occur. But it is essential that these later developments be related without contradiction, without contradiction, too, and even build up from the initial positions taken by the several participants. It would seem that an individual can more easily make a choice as to what line of treatment to demand, form, and extend to the others present at the beginning of an encounter than he can alter the line of treatment that is being pursued once the interaction is underway. Okay. So they're still just trying to control their perception based on their responses, and they're always going like in this circular module of like um reinventing their reactions basically. Well, I think the one who's really wearing the mask is the one who can always reinvent their interactions. So let me read this over. So, in everyday life, of course, there is a clear understanding that first impressions are important. Thus, the work adjustment of those in service occupations will often hinge upon a capacity to seize and hold the initiative in the service relation, a capacity that will require subtle aggressiveness on the part of the server when he is of lower social economic status than his client. W.F. White suggests the waitress as an example. Mm. Okay, we're still on page 7. The first point that stands out is that the waitress who bears up under pressure does not simply respond to her customers. She acts with some skill to control their behavior. The first question to ask when we look at the customer relationship is, does the waitress get the jump on the customer, or does the customer get the jump on the waitress? The skilled waitress realizes the crucial nature of this question. This is interesting. I've never even thought about that. A good waitress, other than that, because like the acts of service has went down quite a bit. But everybody want to blame one theme that occurred a couple years ago when the acts of services just went down. But yes, a skilled waitress. I wonder why they use waitress, because food is so important and so relatable to everybody that they had to use a waitress as an example of as observing another person, Interesting. Okay. So the skilled waitress tackles the customer with confidence and without hesitation. Yes. Yes. For example, she may find that a new customer has seated himself before she could clear off the dirty dishes and change the cloth. He is now leaning on the table, studying the menu. She greets him, says, "May I change the cover, please?" And without waiting for an answer, takes his menu away from him so that he moves back from the table and she goes about her work. Ah, the relationship is handled politely but firmly, and there is never a question as to who is in charge. When the interaction that is initiated by first impressions, it itself merely the initial interaction, is an extended series of interactions involving the same participants. Wait, when the interaction that is initiated by first impressions, it itself, merely the initial interaction, is an extended series of interactions involving the same participants we speak of, getting off on the right foot and feel that it is crucial that we do so. Thus, one leans that some teachers take the following view. Okay, so basically, where are we talking about first impressions? Okay, so we're not only talking about giving off a first impression as giving off like a good sense, but a first impression of, okay, whose space you in, who's going to control, the whole interactions of how our pleasantries is going to go about, that is the whole is what I'm getting, is what he's referring to, not just the acts of, oh, okay, well, they were a nice person or she were a nice person. It's just about setting boundaries and foundations right off the bat. Okay, so here's the point of view that he's getting ready to give. You can't ever let them get the upper hand on you or you're through. So I start out tough. The first day I get a new class in. Oh, so this is the teacher. I'm sorry. Yeah, duh, this is the teacher that they're referring to. So the first day I get a new class in, I let them know who's boss. You've got to start off tough. Then you can ease up as you go along. If you start out easygoing, when you try to get tough, then they'll just look at you and laugh, which is facts. So this goes back to saying, not only when you're presenting yourself as presenting yourself like the first time, this is where you officially set up your boundaries. They don't have to be like some harsh boundaries. It's just basically tell people where you stand. So there's no leadway one way or the other. Uh-huh. So we're on page 8. Two more pages. And drink some water. And what time is it, y'all? Do any of you guys, what is his name? Goffman. Anybody read about Mr. Goffman and or let me let you know I just learned about him this week. My first time hearing about him. I've only known of two sociologists ever recently. One, not because I'm like quote unquote black, but I am aware of other sociologists that are quite interesting. That's just where I'm going to leave it. But did you guys know that Martin Luther King Jr. studied sociology in college? And that was his major. And also W.E.B. Du Bois, which probably some people already know. He studied sociology also. So this guy, Goffman, he's a sociologist also. His theory is like the interpretation of self, right? And that model is I have to come back to you on what frame of model this sociologist built his work off of. But I know that Martin Luther King Jr. and W.B. Du Bois model was the conflict theory model. You know, the process of like race theory and all that good stuff. There's like too many theories, but there's a lot of different theories in sociology. Like there's a lot of other theories. Everything in this world is theorized. Anyhow, so no one's heard of Goffman. I don't blame you. It is Friday, right? 6:39. Excuse me. Mm, okay. Similarly, attendants in mental institutions may feel that if the new patient is sharply put in his place the first day on the ward and made to see who is boss, much future difficulty will be prevented. Given the fact that the individual effectively projects a definition of the situation when he enters the presence of others, wait, given the fact that the individual effectively projects a definition of the situation when he enters the presence of others, we can assume that events may occur within the interaction which contradict, discredit, or otherwise throw doubt upon this projection. I'm sorry, I have to go back and read that again one more time. One more time for the people in my back of my head. Given the fact that the individual effectively projects a definition of the situation when he enters the presence of others, we can assume that events may occur within the interaction which contradict, discredit, or otherwise throw doubt upon this projection. Okay, whatever. When these disruptive events occur, the interaction itself may come to a confused and embarrassed halt. Uh, okay. Some of the assumptions upon which the responses of the participants had been predicated become untenable, untenable, untenable. And the participants find themselves lodged in an interaction for which the situation has been wrongly defined and is now no longer defined. Huh. At such moments, the individual whose presentation has been discredited may feel ashamed while the others present may feel hostile. Ah, and all the participants may come to feel ill, at ease, nonplussed. What? Out of contents, embarrassed, experiencing the kind of anomie. Oh, enemy. I remember that term. The kind of enemy that is generated when the minute social system of face-to-face interaction breaks down. Goodness gracious. His synthesis goes on and on and on and on, and stressing the fact that the initial definition of the situation projected by an individual tends to provide a plan for the cooperative activity that follows. In stressing this action point of view, we must not overlook the crucial fact that any projected definition of the situation also has a distinctive moral character. Lord. Okay, so we're on page 8. It is this moral character of projections that will chiefly concern us in this report. Society is organized on the principle that any individual who possesses certain social characteristics has a moral right to expect that others will value and treat him in an appropriate way. Let's read that again for the people in the back. It is this moral character of projections that will chiefly concern us in this report. Society is organized on the principle that any individual who possesses certain social characteristics has a moral right, sorry, to expect that others will value and treat him in an appropriate way. Connected with this principle is a second, namely, that an individual who implicitly or explicitly signifies that he has certain social characteristics ought, in fact, to be what he claims he is. Okay, going back to what we were all saying that before and how they're talking about their verbal cues and their expressiveness. Okay. In consequence, when an individual projects a definition of the situation and thereby makes an implicit or explicit claim to be a person of the particular kind, he is automatically exerts a moral demand upon the others. So that's the point. A moral demand upon others, obliging them to value and treat him in the manner that persons of his kind have a right to expect. He also implicitly foregoes all claims to be things he does not appear to be, and hence foregoes the treatment that would be appropriate for such individuals. This guy, like, you can tell he likes to talk about the interpretation of self. Like, it's like really close to psychology, but he's using more like theoretical terms and not so much like scientifical definitions and things like that. But he did talk about the communication model, so which is, you know, uh, anyway. He also implicitly forgoes all claims to be things he does not appear to be, and hence forgoes the treatment that will be appropriate for such individuals. The others find then that the individual has informed them as to what is and what they ought to say as the is. Uh, Okie dokie. One cannot judge the importance of definitional disruptions by the frequency with which they occur, for apparently they would occur more frequently were not constant precautions taken. We find that preventative practices are constantly employed to avoid these embarrassments, and that corrective practices are constantly employed to compensate for discrediting occurrences that have not been successfully avoided. Oh my goodness. When the individual employs the strategies and tactics to protect his own projections, we may refer them as defensive practices. Yeah. So now, where do they use the term defensive mechanism? I think they use defensive mechanism probably like interchangeably between psychology too. So he says when the individual employs the strategies and tactics to protect his own projections, we may refer them as defensive practices. When a participant employs them to save the definition of the situation projected by another. Oh, okay. We speak of protective practices or tact. So is this going to be page 9? Jeez, please. Together, defensive and protective practices comprise the techniques employed to safeguard the impression fostered by an individual during his presence before others. Mm-hmm. Um, Let me attempt some kind of way to highlight that. I'm just going to write page 14, defensive and protective practices. Defensive and protective practices. Oh, that ain't page 14, but they know what I mean. So, defensive and protective practices, huh? So, defensive practices, I would say only a person would use like defensive practices if they have something to lie about, right? And protective don't so much mean that there's something that they're lying about when we're talking about like the presentation of self and interactions. I just think sometimes that information just shouldn't be out right away. So I think that's in one way we can use protective practices. And when we're interpreting, I keep saying interpretation of self. So why don't I just come up with my own fucking theory of interpretation of self? Interpretation of the highest self, basically. I just started my own theory versus like the defensive practices because I think, you know, with defensive practices, we have something we are ashamed of. So we have to hide and we have to be defensive. I mean, because why else be defensive on your language, on how you present yourself? Because I'm just like psychologically thinking if someone who's defensive means they have something to hide or they're lying about something or they're just like truly, truly, truly like embarrassed about something that where they need to be defensive about because why put on a stage play in a whole role in a basic interaction where the interplay comes in defensive kind of, in a way. Anyway, who fuck knows? I don't know. This is his theory. This is Goffman's concepts of defensive and protective practices. I'm just coming up with my own way of relating to it, I guess. Because I feel like this PDF is going in so many different directions. I mean, it is the presentation of self, but I feel like he's talking about a lot of different points. It isn't all like solidified. It's just a lot of maybe there's more to this book. Yeah, this is probably like half of one chapter inside of the book. So maybe that's why I feel like I'm missing more information. All right, we're still almost done. We're on page 9. Oh my goodness. I've been on here for a grip. Don't tell me I've been reading this for 3 hours. That's crazy. That can't be 3 hours reading this whole. Okay, sorry. In addition to the fact that precautions are taken to prevent disruptions of, okay. In addition to the fact that precautions are taken to prevent disruption of projected definitions, we may also note that an intent An intense interest in these disruptions come to play a significant role in the social life of the group. Practical jokes and social games are played in which embarrassment, which are to be taken unseriously, are purposely engineered. Fantasies are created in which devastating exposures occur. Anecdotes from the past, real, embroidered, or fictitious, are told and retold, mm, detailing disruptions which occurred, almost occurred, or occurred and were admirably resolved. So they're talking about this, the disruptions. Okay. There seems to be no grouping which does not have a ready supply of these games and cautionary tales to be used as a source of humor. A catharsis, oh my goodness, catharsis, sorry if I said that wrong, for anxieties, and a sanction for inducing individuals to be modest in their claims and reasonable in their projected expectations. What? The individual may tell himself through dreams of getting into impossible positions. Families tell of the time a guest got his dates mixed and arrived when neither the house nor anyone is in was ready for him. Journalists tell of times when an all too meaningful misprint occurred and the paper's assumption of objectivity or decorum was humorously discredited. Public servants tell of times a client ridiculously misunderstood form instructions. Oh, I'm sorry. Public servants tell of times a client ridiculously misunderstood form instructions, giving answers which implied an unanticipated and bizarre definition of the situation. What? Seamen whose home away from home is rigorously he-men tell stories of coming back home and inadvertently asking mother to pass the fucking butter. What? Alrighty then. Diplomats tell of the time a nearsighted queen asks a Republican ambassador about the health of his king. To summarize, then, I assume that when an individual appears before others, he will have many motives for trying to control the impression they receive of the situation. So many motives, to control the situation. This report is concerned with some of the common techniques that persons employ to sustain such impressions and with some of the common contingencies associated with the employment of these techniques. The specific content of any activity presented by the individual participant or the role it plays in the interdependent activities of an ongoing social system will not be at issue. I shall be concerned only with the participants' dramatic, dramatic, mm, I'm just going to say drama. The shorter word for drama. Wait, where to go? I shall be concerned only with the participants' drama. It's not dramatical. Oh, it is. No, it's not dramatical. No. With the participants' dramatical problems of presenting the activity before others. Ah, interesting. Okay, I see. Like kind of what I was talking about, that whole process of them putting on the mask, the whole drama in between each situation. So he's interested in that process. the drama for each stage that they put on. This report is concerned with some of the common techniques that persons employ to sustain such impressions and with some of the common contingencies associated with the employment of these techniques. The specific content of any activity presented by individuals participant or the role it plays in the interdependent activities of an ongoing social system will not be at issue. I shall only be concerned only with the participants' dramatical problems of presenting the activity before others. The issue dealt with by stagecraft and stage management are sometimes trivial but are quite general. They seem to occur everywhere in social life, providing a clear cut dimension for formal sociological analysis. Mm, hmm. Well, goddamn. Well, since I'm reading this, I'm like, am I putting on a show or stage replay? Why the fuck would I do that? I don't know. I'm just reading. I like to read out loud. If I'm not reading here out loud, I am reading here out loud. Mm. Anyway, I'm not sure. I have to think about that. I have to think about that. Well, this thing really like no social setting, so I guess that really doesn't play of any kind right now. I guess you have to be in a social setting. Now, if I was like at a library, something, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be reading out loud. If I was probably out in public, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be reading out loud unless, there wasn't a lot of people by. So, um, hmm. It will be convenient to end this introduction with some definitions that are implied in what has gone before and required for what is to follow. For the purpose of this report, interaction, that is face to face interaction, may be roughly defined as the reciprocal influence of individuals upon one another's actions when in one another's immediate physical presence. An interaction may be defined as all the interaction which occurs throughout any one occasion when a given set of individuals are in one's author's continuous presence. The term an encounter would do as well. What? The term an encounter. Oh, okay. An encounter. Jeez. A performance may be defined as all the activity of a given participant on a given occasion which serves to influence any way any of the other participants. Taking a particular participant and his performances as a basic point of reference, we may refer to those who contribute. I thought that was the last page. Contribute the other performances as the audience, observers, or co participants. The pre established pattern of action, which is unfolded during a performance and which may be presented or played through on other occasions, may be called a part or routine. These situational terms can easily be related to conventional structural ones. Oh, okay. When an individual or performer plays the same part to the same audience on different occasions, a social relationship is likely to arise. Defining social role as the enactment of rights and duties attached to a given status, we can say that a social role will involve one or more parts and that each of these different parts may be presented by the performer on a series of occasions to the same kinds of audience or to basically they're calling y'all performers, all y'all influencers. They're calling you performers is what they're saying because you have different faces. So they call this YouTube, but I guess we're all performers. for people who are watching is what Goffman is saying. The sociologist, everybody in the social settings. Now, it might be a digital social setting, but yet and still it's a social setting. Any environment where there's a social setting, he's basically saying everybody's performing, putting on an act. The only people who probably ain't really putting on acts is children. Everybody else is performing. That's what I got from this 10-page PD. Oh, and look at this. He has chapter one. The chapter one of his book is called Performances, but the instructor only just did like 3 paragraphs. She didn't list the whole chapter, but this is the end of whatever here. What is the beginning of this? This is called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life by Irvin Goffman. And okay, so I just read the introduction basically. I just read the introduction, and chapter one is called Performance. Now, I don't know if I would be interested in reading. I maybe a little bit. Will be curious to what he has to say, but I don't want to like bore myself to fucking death at the same time. But I am interested because he does go with this interplay of like this stage and drama and act scene, how we like I like that um, perspective or whatever, um, that form of modification of how we interact with one another with stage play, because that is completely what it is, wholeheartedly putting on performance and acting for for other people or in groups, and or not. The only people who I think aren't are like homeless and children. The only people who probably aren't really performing, honestly. As much as we can say when we meet people for the first time, we're like, oh, I'm just going to be myself. I think that when we start engaging and interacting with one another, we start to change and twerk just a little bit based on our engagement with one another, based on if you know, if it's a good interaction. Hold on one second. I gotta find my other charger. Find my charger. I'm probably about to bounce anyway. Hold on one second. Oh my, this speaker is actually connected here. Will it allow me to charge and put this in here some kind of way? Will that happen? Oh my god, they were so smart. Smart technology. Yeah. Children have no filter in their blank slates. They're influencers in training. Yes, they sure are. I like that you actually brought that up too, because I had to think of myself also like as a child, and I still kind of remember. But what I do remember the most is being the extreme observer. I used to watch these all kinds of adults, how they treat each other, how they treated me, how teachers at school treated me, just how adults treated each other. I was always observant of that. And then one thing that I was told at home, I would see if that will stand up in real time in the real world. Um, like some people in my family were kind of racist. Okay. I never fell or never took that pill. I would go out into the world, and I would see, how I would measure it based on what, my family would tell me. And sometimes it just didn't measure it. Ugh. But I was the complete observer. Now, of course, I was influenced like anybody else because we all go to school. Some people were socialized in religion because we're socialized in every aspect of our life, and um, in some way or another, I guess. And unless you're a monk, but even then, aren't they like kind of socialized? Also, monks, aren't they kind of socialized in their own way? Also, 500 calories. Boom. Stupid. Okay, so it's 7:07. I'm about to get out of these clothes and put on my gym clothes and find some food, and I'll probably hop on later. I hope you guys like the video. Thanks for chatting with me, Mr. Cool Water. Must be a water sign. Thanks for listening to me read this kind of boring but interesting material. I would read this chapter on performances, but that's okay. You could probably find the PDF online. Bye. Trying to log off.